PEARCE. I'm the festival chair at INeedDiverseGames, and the co-chair along with Charles Babb of the Gaming for Everyone Pavilion, sponsored by Intel. And this session is if you wish to speak to your neighbor, please exit the tent. They're not paying attention to me. Okay, so we wanted to do a series of sessions. All of the people in these sessions are people that were given travel stipends and tables in the Gaming for Everyone Pavilion. You can go talk to them later on. And actually they fell into some very natural groupings. So the first event of discussion we had this morning was events for everyone, with people organizing Game X and Black game events here in LA, and IndieCade obviously, and then the second, different games. This session, we're going to focus on journalism for everyone with two journalists who have created their own voice for marginalized groups or people that they feel don't have a voice. So I thought we'd start by them each introducing their publication, why they started it, and what its mission is.
Hi everybody, I'm Jillian. I started FemHype. It's at FemHype.com. It is a safe space for women and non-binary folk to talk about games. Initially I started it because I was talking with friends and we felt like we'd always wanted to write about games, but there was no space designated for us, or for whatever reason we felt like we couldn't go to the publications that were larger because we felt like we wouldn't be heard over the noise. So we started FemHype.com, and we've gotten a really great response to it. And as it's grown, we've kind of included 50% of our readers are actually men. We have a wide range of people who read it, and I feel like the response to it has really just pushed me to, get out there and meet more people, because I want to be able to, support more spaces like ours. I feel like it's very important to have those designated spaces for people to talk about games.
My name is Tanya. I actually started the INeedDiverseGames hashtag over a year ago, and out of that hashtag, sorry, I'm used to being loud. So my name is Tanya. I started the INeedDiverseGames hashtag over a year ago, and out of that hashtag, a blog started because a lot of people had opinions and things they want to say. So now we've actually got a very active Tumblr with over 70,000 people. And also, I do a podcast with my co-host David, who's watching the table over in the tent. And we want to have those discussions that a lot of people are not having about games, because there are discussions to be had that are not just scores and reviews and mechanics. We want to give people a chance to speak if they're a AAA dev, an indie dev, someone who's just made their first Twine game and wants to really talk about it. One of our best episodes was with Tariq Musa, Austin Walker, and Catherine Cross, who's also here, about games critique as people of color. So those are the kind of conversations we want to have and give people a chance to get themselves out there, because like Jillian said, it's harder to get out to mainstream publications if you don't want to have the kind of, oh, I love Assassin's Creed, 10 out of 10, it's awesome conversation.
I have to say, I really like the eye roll that you gave at the end of that. That was right on. I'm so there. Yeah, Assassin's Creed that has no women playable characters. Thank you very much.
Actually, that's not true. So the newest game that just came out yesterday has Ian Fry. I watched the film play, and I'm going to go buy it before I go home. So that has changed actually with the newest release.
Apologies to anyone from Ubisoft. Okay, so can you give us a snapshot of a typical conversation or a typical piece of writing that takes place within the context of your journalism community?
Well, it's sort of changed. Initially we started with just women and we just talked about feminism in games, and that's pretty much a little mainstream now. But as we started to get bigger and more people started to join, we've been having a lot of LGBTQ conversations. A lot of people coming in who are like, hey, I'm a woman, but I'm also gay, and I want to talk about that. And we were like, yes, thank you. So recently it's been more geared toward LGBTQ and a lot of gender binary discussions are happening. People are fed up with the fact that when you have a game and it asks you to pick a man or a woman, like why? Like, why do we have to choose that? And it's really, really interesting to see the amount of people who came in just for that article. This was actually like about a month ago we ran that article, and everyone started to come in. Thank you for at least saying it, which was shocking to me because I had assumed that somebody had said it somewhere at some point, and maybe they did, but recently it's been geared more toward experiences that people are having while they play games and how that relates to their sexuality, their gender, you know, whatever the case may be. And we're really, really excited to have that conversation going because it's so important.
For us, it's basically kind of what's going on, and actually one of our top episodes was kind of generated out of a FemHype article about asexuality in games, because that's something I could not find anyone else really talking about it. And, you know, we want to have, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but we want to give people that voice that aren't getting it elsewhere. Because for me, I'm a black queer gamer. There's not a lot of black queer characters in games that I can easily identify. And for other people who may be missing that experience, we want to go, hey, here's an awesome game. Here's a chance to talk to the person who made that game. Or, you know, kind of highlighting Kickstarters and things by diverse creators like Ori in the game that just got successfully funded in, I think it was last week, and they're the first Cameroonian game studio to exist. And that's, you know, highlighting things like that, because otherwise how would people know these things exist? Because, you know, if not for the power of the internet, neither one of us would be here, probably.
Yeah.
That kind of brings me to my next subject about the power of the internet to be evil. I was just mentioning to someone that I believe that Twitter is the playground of the devil. And so I want to ask you both about, have you received a lot of backlash, or what kinds of pushback have you been getting from the devils that are playing in the Twitter and other interweb playgrounds?
Go for it.
So Twitter is the devil's playground. I do not disagree with that. Unfortunately, I'm now blocking over 100,000 people on Twitter because I want to talk about diversity in games. You know, I've had nasty racist stuff sent to me. You know, the usual not so fun elements have decided to declare war on the hashtag, try to infiltrate it, claim that there's diversity and we're just not looking for it. Oh, you just don't care. I'm sorry, diversity is not a red-headed white woman instead of brown characters, LGBT characters. So basically I have like 4 block bots running at all times. There are times I just don't look at Twitter, I don't look at my feed, because if you keep looking at it and look at the comments, because I've written 4 other online spaces, if you ever get published or start your own publication, moderate your comments or don't look at the comments, like, ever. So I've had the unfortunate experience of being a target because I was unhappy with an academic article that was written about INeedDiverseGames, and Gamergate found it, and I know they're stalking my blog. So, you know, it's kind of a non-stop thing of once they become aware of your presence, you kind of really have to think about what you're talking about, what you're saying, and either decide I'm going to do what I'm going to do, or, you know, kind of cower. And I don't cower. That's just me.
I think it's really difficult. Initially, when I started writing years ago, it was just me, so I wasn't so worried about anybody else but me. And then when I started the FemHype website, we have over 30 writers at the moment, and then I went, oh, there are other people that I have to protect now. So I've tried to make an effort to moderate all the comments. We actually don't get a lot of too much negativity. It's certain articles, it'll explode, and then they'll just die away and not come back, because why would they read our site? I guess we're boring. But moderate the comments. Do not engage it whatsoever. Is the best advice I can give anybody. Like, you can read it if you want, if you have the stomach for it, read it. I unfortunately have to read it all just to make sure nothing unsafe is happening. But in my experience with FemHype at least, I tell all of my writers, do not engage it, because no healthy discussion will come of that. Like, when people come at you with fire, walk away, because really the best thing you can do right now is, if you want to create safe spaces like this, if you want to be able to give these people who have no voices whatsoever in this industry right now, if you want to be able to protect them and give them that space, let them know that you're there for them and that you're making sure that nobody is coming in at them, because if they all of a sudden see 500 comments that all say horrible things, why would they want to write again? Like, I want to make sure that people who have never been able to write before for whatever reason have that space and feel comfortable doing it.
I know I'm kind of old-fashioned, but I just turn comments off completely because I'm like, whatever. If somebody wants to talk to me, they can send me an email and then I can publish what they said. But yeah. Both of you mentioned that there are a lot of readers and participants in your community that are not of the group that the community is intended for. So I want to talk a little bit about this because I think that we have this popular misconception that like gay games are only for gay people, but hey, gone home. So I think that we can start talking a little bit more about this in terms of, you know, other people who aren't queer or black or women or whatever actually care what we have to say. So can you talk a little bit about that and how that community has engaged with the community?
I'm a fan of INeedDiverseGames.
And I'm a fan of FemHype, so you're a fan of the podcast has gotten a great response. Going back to our episode about asexuality, a game dev actually was tweeting back at us about, thank you for even addressing this because I'm in this industry and I don't get to see myself. And, you know, I've been very lucky. Either articles I've written, you know, I do get some good comments, it's not all terrible. People go, I never thought of that. For instance, I wrote an off-world about Dragon Age and about the race issues in that game, and someone wrote back, like, you know, I never had that perspective. I never thought of that. Thanks to what you said, it made me more aware of this issue. And a lot of our podcast episodes get that because, you know, if you can actually hear someone speaking versus words on the page, I think sometimes it has a greater impact. Because sometimes people get emotional. There's things that really get to them as they're talking about it, and you don't really have that release in text, I think, because it's very hard to see what someone's intent or emotion is as you're reading words on the screen. So people do engage, and they engage faithfully, and sometimes they come looking for it because they know that you have that good content, they know that you're trying to have this conversation, they come in good faith to be educated, and you know, and to be educated, I mean they actually want to do the work, not expect you to hand them a roadmap to intersectionality 101 and not do the work. So it, you know, it does have good engagement, but think about that when you're going out there into a space that doesn't belong to you, quote unquote. And think about who it is that you're asking to give you that information back. It's very important that you engage respectfully, and if someone doesn't have an answer, they don't respond to you, Google is your friend.
I can't add much more to that, just that I think it surprised me to note how many men actually follow the site. I was pretty, at first, when we first started, it was like, oh, this isn't a space for me, whatever, and we got a lot of whatever. And then I saw the comments start to roll in, and it was a lot of, wow, I never considered that ever. And this is great. And I'm like, oh, so if you're jazzed about it, that's cool. Like, as long as you, I think, foster as positive an environment as you can, and, you know, let the writers know that, you know, just make sure that you're aware of the fact that, you know, your reader base, like who's reading it, and if they want to engage with the comments, a lot of people like doing that. And as long as you keep the conversation going and you keep it like in an open forum environment, everyone feels like they can come. Like, you can stop by, oh, I like this article, I'll come back later, you know? Like, as long as it's, at least for FemHype, I've gotten a really good response from people just to keep it open, keep moving, and we'll reblog things that happened like a month ago, and people are still talking about it. Like, let them know that you're reading it, let them know that you're watching, and you're excited that they're excited. So I'll get excited.
Oh, that's great. And I want to add something to that too, because I've found this to be the case in my own experience, especially as a teacher, is that there is a small minority of people that are Google, let's just put a word on it, to borrow from our former president's favorite simplification things, but there are people in the world that just, they have ill intent and they're mean and they're nasty. But for me, the vast majority of people that are outside of marginalized groups, whatever they may be in relation to the other group. Most of them just need to be illuminated. Like my students who are 17-year-old, mostly 17-year-old white boys, 90% of them just need a light turned on. I make them all read Utopian Entrepreneur, Brenda Laurel's book. All my students of every gender and color have to read Utopian Entrepreneur. As soon as they have their eyes opened, they become inherently more respectful. Which brings me to my next question, which is just to talk a little bit about the role of empathy and how empathy, what empathy does for the conversation.
I think it's interesting because a lot of the articles, at least for us, is a lot of emotion. There's a lot of personal stories that come out of FemHype, and it's not so much like you were saying before, Assassin's Creed 10 out of 10. We do very few reviews of big games like that. It's a lot of heart, I would say, a lot of indie games, a lot of indie developers, people who are coming and just want to talk about their childhood experiences or what brought them to games. And I think that when you foster a lot of that in the same environment, then the empathy comes with it from your readership, Because if you're putting out articles like that, you'll get that back, is what I found. So that's really...
And I think empathy gives the reader or the podcast listener, something where they can go, this person is like me, they're human too. Because a lot of what is missed is the humanizing aspect of these conversations, because, someone may go, oh, well, she's a black chick, I can't empathize with what she's done or what she's gone through. Or, I'm older, so maybe if someone's a younger gamer, they can't really, interact with that. So if you have empathy for where a person's coming from, no matter where that is, I think it will help you get a lot more out of articles, on podcasts, or in your own writing, if you're out there trying to have your own articles put out there. Because that lack of empathy will really show through.
And then kind of on a related subject is the whole idea of giving people permission to be invisible. I feel like when I get up in front of a classroom of game design students and they see that their teacher is a woman, that gives all of the girls, all 3 of them, permission to be a game designer. And I think that for the kinds of work that you guys are doing, it opens up doors for people who otherwise might not have felt that they were invited to the table. So can you just share a couple of experiences that you've had, or people you've met or talked to that have had sort of a transformative experience like that from your publication?
I may get a little emotional. There are quite a few people who come to us who want to write for us, and I get interesting submission emails because people will start with, I've only ever written in high school and college, and I have nothing else to give you, but I love games and I want to talk about it. And these are people who have absolutely no voice in the industry whatsoever. These are asexual gamers, these are non-binary folk, these are people who are not represented right now in any capacity. And I get a lot of people who feel like they need to show me something to prove that they should be on the website. And I wish there was some way that I could convey to everyone that that is absolutely not the case, that if you want to come and write for us, we would love you to come and write for us. And I think the most emotional story that individual felt like they couldn't write in any space. And it took a long time, and over several emails, we were finally able to get to the point where, this is wonderful, like, I love your piece, like, you should write more, like, write as much as you possibly can. Because if you allow that and you continue that dialogue, then more people will come in, and then hopefully everyone will feel like they can talk about games.
For us, we get a lot of people who either read the blog or listen to the podcast and feel like someone else is out there, someone else is finally saying these things. This actually happened on a panel I was at another con, but we did a Q&A at the end. And a woman came up and she was in tears before she even got to her question. And she talked about how she felt pushed out of the industry and felt like she couldn't do anything like even podcasting or writing anymore because she just felt like she was no longer welcome. And it was very hard to see this woman, in tears before she got her question out, and to talk to her afterward, because You know, she was someone who'd been doing this way longer than I had. There's another black woman, probably close to my age, and to see her feel like there is no longer a place for me. And then to get people who, when we ask them to be on the podcast, they go, well, I'm not a professional, or I've just done one little Twine game, and there's this idea that you have to be credentialed or have X number of games published or X number of articles published. If you're passionate, if you believe in what you're trying to do, that's what you need to do, because we need more original content. And a lot of people feel like, oh, well, I'm just no one, I can't do this, and that is absolutely not true. That's why when people are hiring for publications or putting a call out for articles, we always push it, because we want folks to have that voice. And a lot of places now, like AutoStraddle just put out a call for writers, and they specifically said they wanted more black folks and LGBT folks, and a lot of reblogs were like, I can never do this, I'm not qualified. I'm like, why? Why are you not qualified? Just because you don't have like 20 articles under your name, that's bull. So that's it's hard, and you want to get people to think we're not special. You know, we took the extra effort to start a site or did whatever, but that could be you too. It doesn't have to turn into, oh, I'm no one. No one here is you know, without merit.
I have to just say, I think the mainstream game industry really reinforces that. I mean, I've been in the game industry for 32 years, and Game Sutra will not publish anything that I write. I've tried to get them to publish I've sent them ideas for stories and columns, and they don't care. Because I didn't make Gears of War 8 or whatever it is that they value. I'm, you know, with my credentials, I'm still marginalized. So I think there's a lot of reinforcement for people to feel that way, which is really unfortunate. But I think that what you guys have done, which is great, and what we've tried to do here as well, is to make a space for these voices, and it becomes to me a virtuous cycle. If I see someone who looks like me, then speaking, then I feel like I can speak, and then more people like me will see me, and it just kind of feeds itself. It's unfortunate to me that we have to make our own channels, but at the same time, I think we have no choice given the current environment that we're in. So it takes a lot of courage, I think. I mean, I try to stay out of the public eye because I'm trying to protect this. I'm really afraid that people are going to point the finger at me and then try to hurt my community, but I really think it takes a lot of, excuse the expression, balls to do what you two have done. So I really want to thank you for that. I think we have a few minutes for questions from the audience. So anyone would like to comment or question?
Yeah.
Who's an eager beaver over here?
Hi, Riley.
Hi, friends. One thing is, like, I find for myself as like a trans critic that I feel like there are very limited things I'm allowed to say, and I feel like I pitch things a lot that are like, they want the like, I had gender feels at Dragon Age sort of. I already feel super limited what I'm allowed to talk about, and I wonder, sort of a two-part question, if you all feel that same way, like, you can only say, because of being present with your like marginalized identity, there's only certain things you can talk about, / maybe this sort of temptation to like commodifies your pain in that way, do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a weird question.
So, full disclosure, I'm a big fan of Riley. But there's actually a conversation going on about people and having marginalized spaces and diversity panels, and that being all you talk about. I will talk about whatever I damn well please on this blog or on the podcast, because like you said in the earlier session, intersectionality is a real thing. It exists. You know, being black and queer and a gamer are all facets of who I am. So at least for me, I don't, but a lot of people feel like if I don't pitch with the angle of, oh, I'm a black queer gamer and I feel a sort of kind of way about X game, no one's gonna want to have this piece from me, or they'll take it, or you know, like I'll wind up just putting it on my blog because no one cares. But the commodification of pain is very much a real thing. Sometimes people only want to hear from you. Excuse me, gentlemen, we're having a panel. Sometimes people only want to hear from you when they can have that moment of, oh, I'm going to ask the one black person I know this question, because it happens to me. It happens to me to the point where I just wanted to tell people, Google is your friend. I am not your friendly neighborhood Negro. Do not come and ask me about every black issue you found online. Because there is a commodification of our pain, no matter your marginalized identity. You know, I see people ask trans folks on Twitter, and other spaces like, oh, there's this issue, surely you know about it. One trans person I happen to know on Twitter. So there is very real, very unfortunate commodification of our identities, and then when we can't provide that entertainment for you, a lot of people stop paying attention.
I think it's interesting that you say that because we get that a lot from different writers. They feel like, you know, all right, well, I'm a trans gamer, so I guess you expect me to write my first article being a trans gamer. I'm like, definitely not. Like, if you do not want to talk about that, don't. Because we're trying to create that space where people can talk about what they want to talk about games, which is very specific. Personally, I felt the pressure of talking about being a lesbian gamer, and that's obviously nowhere near like what some people have to talk about, but initially when I first started, I felt like, okay, I have to put it all out there. I'm going to tell everybody what I've been through, and we can get that out of the way, and I can always reference that article, and it's a little disgusting because it is like commodifying it. It is like, you know, this is my brand, I guess. This is who I am. And I really hope that we can be able to change that in journalism as a whole, not just in games, because I feel like that's, you know, you should be able to talk about what you personally feel comfortable talking about, and I just hope that we can change that.
Yeah, this also kind of came up in the last session. I know for me, for many years, if you were a woman at a games conference, you would be on the women in games or gender in games panel, and then no men would come. This is how I started using the term people of gender, because if a panel had the word gender in it, then men didn't come because I guess they didn't have a gender. That was kind of my conclusion. But yeah, it's very interesting how you get pigeonholed into, you know, only speaking on behalf of a particular identity that somebody else ascribes to you. So let's do one more quick question, and then we'll need to start getting ready for the next session.
Oh, come on, somebody else has a question.
If you don't, that's fine too. Oh, hi.
Since we're talking about journalism and actual video games, what does it take to get you as a journalist excited about writing about a particular item or a game that becomes available to you?
That's a good question. So what gets you excited? What makes you want to write about really anything, right? Or a particular game or a particular phenomenon?
For me, it's something I have to want to talk about, but you know, realizing that if you're pitching an idea, you may not always get the opportunity to write something that you're really passionate about, or really like that's the thing you want to talk about, because it's kind of like what's hot, maybe what you can pitch right now. But I was very lucky, like with pitching the Off-World, you know, I'm a huge BioWare nerd, and I was able to put that knowledge to use in an article and get it out there and talk about something that intersects my interests as a gamer, as a black person who's not seeing myself reflected. The episode of our show that's up now, actually we have a very robust discussion about pitching and what it takes to get out there, because it will show in your writing if you are not interested in what you're talking about. We know that if you're getting paid to write, sometimes you write that article to pay the bills, but it will show. So do the best that you can with the pieces, especially if you're given something like, there's a lot of games out there I just don't care about, but if somebody said, hey, I need you to write about, you know, whatever X game, and I don't care about it, I'm going to at least put my best effort forward to show that I have integrity as someone who's writing. Because not just my name is out there, but the publication that's asking me to do this journalism. So if you're going to start your own site, you can kind of set your own rules. But if you're going out there pitching to other people, realize that they get pitches thrown at them every single day, hour on the hour. So you have to go, here's what I want to write about, maybe here's why, but realize you may or may not get a chance to write for everyone, but at least put yourself out there, because a lot of people just want you to pitch.
I would only add that the intersection thing that you mentioned is really, really wonderful. Like, if you are being asked to write something that you're not necessarily not really that into, if you can just find a vein of yourself in it, that will help you enormously in the writing, because it'll come through that you're interested in something about it and there's something personal in it. And yeah, I would definitely say that's important.
And just a quick closing, Tanya, you mentioned Off-World several times. Can you just tell us in a couple sentences what it is and how it came about?
Off-World actually was started by Lee Alexander. She revived it, I want to say, she announced it at this year's GDC during the #1 Reason to Be panel. Boing Boing had a game subsection that went defunct, and she brought that back. So they are actually having those really awesome conversations, talking about alt games, having conversations about like random little stuff that you normally would not see, that you wouldn't expect to see on a major publication. So things like Robert Yang's games. I think they covered Downwell, a lot of other things that are getting some coverage, but not a lot. They've really pushed Kickstarters that are diverse and things like that. So they're being that voice for marginalized people. I know Lee Alexander's mission is to, again, give that voice to people that may not feel like they can go elsewhere and write. And I don't know if they're open for pitches right now, but you know, she's always been receptive to, hey, I want to throw something at Offworld. How do I contact you?
I just want to add that she did this in direct response to her own harassment. Rather than shutting up, she amped it up and started her own publication. So this is, to me, a great example, again, of how your anger or frustration can also be channeled into creativity and also to making a space for other people to channel their thoughts, ideas, whatever. So if anybody has a seed of an idea for a journalism project, go for it, because you could also be helping a lot of other people who don't have a voice. So that's all the time we have for this session.